Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm going to be talking about my Inktober 2023 challenge, why I decided to draw a whole bunch of birds, the materials I used, I'll do a flip through, and you'll also see some footage of me actually working in real time so you can see my process as well. If you stay tuned till the end, you'll get to see what I created with all these drawings. Okay, so starting off with materials, you can see here I've used a pencil. This is just a 2B from Stapler, and that was mostly for warm-ups, and I didn't actually end up using the pencil so much at the end, but some days when I felt like I wasn't getting the bird right, or I just wanted to warm up one or two before I went straight into the pen, that's when I would use the pencil. As for the pen, this is the Pentel brush pen, so it's filled with cartridges. It has a brush tip, so it's very fine. I started off using a sketchbook here. This is the Derwent Academy Visual Art Diary, just a sketchbook from Officeworks. And then you'll notice that I swapped over to the Canson Bleed Proof marker paper pad. Okay, so the first one here is the bin chicken, or the Australian ibis. And you can see I did 3 sketches here, or 2 sketches. And then I just went for that one, and I really liked the expressiveness of it. I wanted to keep these simple, sketchy, low stakes in terms of not being too precise or accurate or nicely detailed and finished, because in the past when I've tried to do that, I've struggled to complete the Inktober challenge. And it's also to match the style of something that I wanted to create with all these drawings at the end that someone else has done. All right, number 2 was the Great Egret, and so I went straight into drawing them without any pencil lines. With this one, I think the beak is a little bit too thick, or maybe it needs to be a bit longer. And here I find that, yeah, it's again too thick near the eye. So not super happy with those ones, but to me they capture what it looks like. And that's what the main goal was for drawing these ones. And then back to another ibis for day 3, which is the, I think this is the glossy ibis or the straw-necked ibis. So you can see I did like an actual pencil sketch. Then I wanted to do a flying one. And yeah, so it was the glossy ibis because the next day was the straw-necked ibis, so we've got the 3 ibis from Australia here. And of course with the glossy, they're pretty dark and black. So my goal was to create a colouring in page, but I realized that a lot of these birds are black and white, which makes it a bit hard. But I wanted to try and encourage people if they wanted to add certain colours, because the glossy ibis and the straw-necked ibis too have some really beautiful colours that come out at different angles from their feathers. So in the end I was very happy with this final one here, but you can see it took me 5 drawings to get to that one. Beak's probably a little bit wobbly. I always struggled the most with the beaks because drawing the fine lines, and then yeah, it can be hard with the brush pen. So day 4 was the straw-necked ibis, and after that first one I was pretty happy. I was here trying to leave little bits of white and sort of sketch more in a hinting manner rather than draw absolutely everything. You can't see the eye, for example, and there's a little mark here that I just remove digitally for the final product, but otherwise really happy with the pose and how that came out. Day 5 was the yellow-billed spoonbill, and this one here I struggled to show the spoonbill, so even though the rest of the bird's probably fine, I didn't like that one so much. And also with here, and I lost the eye a little bit. So here you could really see the spoonbill, and it has a funny pose, so I was quite happy with that one too in the end, although it does look a little bit funny. Yeah. here you can see some sketches that I did for the Nanking night heron and the pelican. And then here's the Nanking night heron and pelican pen drawing. So this is for day 7. I wanted to capture the real skulking nature of these herons. And they got beautiful coloration. Here the beak is too big. And there, even though those little marks are really white feathers, I still like having them just to show that you can spot them. Because the point is that all these birds are to be spotted in real life. And then here I've started drawing the pelican. I really wanted to draw them flying because I like how they look like battleships in the air, to capture that, like, their size. But I think I struggled to get the that in the end. And so this is probably the one, I think the one I ended up with, but that one I was quite happy with too. Maybe just something going on here that I'm not quite so sure of. Maybe the body's a bit too stretched. And this one also looks funny a little bit with the water lines, just something about the angle's not making sense there, but I like the bald-headedness and the head of that pelican. Then for day 9, we've got the little, or the pied cormorant. So they've got the white and black and little yellow beak, and I really like this one because of the posture that it's got, where it's just sitting there drying its feathers, and that's how I usually spot them. Here the head's a little bit strange, but that posture I like as well. This is day 10, and it's a white-faced heron, which is mostly grey, like a stone grey, slate grey, and then has a white face and a little bit of the top of its neck. Again, struggled with the beak, getting it really long and thin, and the eye, but otherwise pretty happy with that. And then down here is a Pacific black duck. I really like this, but I think I ran out of room or something wasn't quite going right there. So I think I continued on. So yeah, some more Pacific black ducks. Really trying to, this is the repeat of the one from the previous page, but I think I must have not liked the beak there. And then I tried a different pose because I wanted to showcase their little patch here on their wing, which is, I think, a bright green and white maybe. And I think that's the one I ended up with at the end. And then these ones down here are pink-eared ducks. And beak is not quite right. They sort of have an interesting shape. That's probably closest, I think. But I like the body on this one. Trying to capture their zebra stripes is quite an interesting challenge there. And they've also got a fair bit of colour on the rump, I think, too. So then for day 14, this is a grebe. This is the great crested grebe, and I think that's the one I went with in the end. But you can see I really struggled. I had lots of false starts, and then went to pencil and couldn't quite get the head. I think to me that's one of the most important things, because that's what people look at and what makes them instantly recognizable. Not so much the body shape, unless it's very unique and, for example, flying, whereas here most water birds will have this shape in the water. So the head here is what really catches the eye and needs to be right for me. And that was the closest I could get. But again, I think the beak might still be a little bit too big with the pen. But otherwise, yeah, happy. It's, like I said at the beginning, supposed to still be quite sketchy. Now we come on to some ducks. These are still the great crested grebe. Got really frustrated here. I've forgotten this already. And so these ducks, they are the wood ducks, a male and a female. And so I went with these two. So that's the male, I think, and that's the female. And I was quite happy with their shapes and how they looked overall. Then we've got another grebe. This one is a little grebe. And so by this time, I was getting quite frustrated with the paper and the pen because it might not be noticeable here, but there is a little bit of a bleed. And so the lines aren't quite as nice and sharp as I would like. And I remembered that I had this Canson bleed proof paper, which is specifically for markers, makes them crisp, and I'd used it for Inktober in the past. So here we've got the Australasian grebe. So yes, that was the hoary-headed before. And then a black swan, which, yeah, I think I liked the pose, but maybe there was just a line there. And then this, to me, quite big, showing their size and their beak. And then down here we've got the coot. Sorry, that one might be the coot with the white shield. And then these two are the moorhens, dusky moorhen, which have actually got red and a tiny little bit of yellow on the tip of their beak. They look quite similar, except one's got red and one's got white. And then the last one of these three that quite often get mixed up and are quite similar is the purple swamp hen. And I like this one for its posture because they do sort of tuck their tail as they walk. But then they've also got this skulking movement. So I can't remember which one I used in the end, but I like them both there. And then we've got a Australian shelduck, male and female. I think that's the female and that's the male. This is a buff-banded rail. And you can see I haven't done any other drawings. So it depends if I'm just get stuck into it. As I'm drawing, I'm always sort of measuring angles. Where does the neck, what kind of an angle does the neck make with the back? How far, where does the beak end? Or where is the eye in relation to the beak? Is it in the middle of the head? Is it higher than the top of the beak? Is it really close, small? So all these, as I'm drawing, that's what I'm looking at. And then with the markings, I really had a lot of fun doing them at the end. Again, trying to keep it sketchy, but with enough detail that it's realistic. So you can see that there is a wing because the feather angles have changed, and then these ones have got different markings. Then these ducks are blue-billed ducks. My goal for Inktober this year was to draw a bird every day for Inktober, a total of 31, but specifically birds I'd seen at Herdsman Lake. I then wanted to create a free resource using all the drawings. To describe how I arrived at this year's goal, let me just go back in time a few months. I just moved to Perth's northern suburbs and started working casually at the Herdsman Lake Discovery Centre. One of the ways I wanted to settle into my new digs was to sign up to my local library and learn some books. I searched the online catalogue for nature journaling and came across a recently published book called A Guide to the Creatures in Your Neighbourhood by the Urban Field Naturalist Project. I immediately fell in love with it and promptly bought my own copy for future teaching reference. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see some nature journaling books reviewed here. I might make a series in the future. Now, I mention it because the illustrations from the book, as well as a bird counting sheet from their website, was what ultimately guided my decision for Inktober. My idea was to create a similar bird counting sheet that can also be used for colouring in, to coincide with BirdLife Australia's annual backyard bird count that also happens in October. This brings me back to choosing birds specifically from Herdsman Lake. It's an incredibly important place due to it being the largest lake in the Perth metro region, and for breeding and nesting sites for birds, as well as a habitat for reptiles, frogs, fish, and invertebrates. If I could create a fun resource to track and identify local birds, then visitors could learn about them as well as contribute to the bird count. And if you want the sheets, then they're available to download free for personal use from my coffee shop. Just use the link in the description. I wanted to follow the scribbly, casual style that artist Zoe Sadokierski featured in the book and the counting sheet, rather than a more polished, detailed style. This was to create a visually similar and aligned resource, as well as to keep it accessible for younger audiences. And I think that's the male and that's the female. And this is a freckled duck. And at this point, my pen was running out of ink, so I had to change over the ink. And here are the final 5, which took me a little bit longer to complete than I thought they would. So this is a musk duck, and that's the last one I did before I really decided to change over the pen. And then I did, this is a Australasian darter, kind of similar to the cormorants. This is a black cormorant. I just wanted to show that you get them as well, and they are different to that first pied cormorant that's got black and white. Quite happy with how this one turned out. I think just a few little marks to show the feathers, and then having the tree and the feet. I liked how it showed a lot of detail, and it's an interesting pose. And then obviously has that like snake neck, because these guys, I think, might also be called snake birds, because the way they swim in the water, they just sort of stick their head up and almost look like a snake. They're that narrow. Now here is a grey teal, which I think I left because till the end because it was tricky with the markings. And I just really wanted to include a chitty chitty or willy wagtail, because you do see them as well, and I think they're quite recognisable. Thanks for watching. If you liked what I created for this year's Inktober challenge, then please give the video a thumbs up. And remember to leave a comment if you're interested in watching me review some nature journaling books in the future. Do you have any suggestions for what I should do next year for Inktober? Let me know in the comments, while I leave you now with a silent flip through of all the drawings. Catch you in the next video. Bye!